Part 1. The council chamber stretched wide like an endless cavern carved from crystal and starlight. Daniel Carter stood in the center, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, 47 alien species sat in their designated seats. Some looked like moving clouds of gas. Others resembled walking crystals that sparkled in the dim light. The ancient Krell delegation sat in the highest seats, their scaled bodies hunched over control panels. Daniel had come here 3 months ago with hope in his heart. Earth had finally achieved faster-than-light travel. Humanity wanted to join the galactic community. They wanted friends among the stars. But today that hope was dying. The holographic display above the chamber showed the voting results. Red lights dominated the screen. 45 species had voted yes. Only 2 had voted no. The decision was final. Humanity would be exiled from all council territory. High Arbiter Zephron rose from his throne. His 3 eyes blinked in sequence as he spoke. His voice echoed through translation devices that every species wore. The words came out cold and clear. Humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent. They had 72 hours to leave council space. Every human colony, every human ship, every human presence must be gone. Captain Lisa Morgan stood beside Daniel. Her uniform was crisp and clean, but her jaw was tight with anger. She wanted to speak, wanted to shout, but Daniel raised his hand slightly. "Stay calm," the gesture said. "Show them nothing." Daniel spoke quietly, but his words carried through the chamber. Humanity had come in peace. They had offered friendship and cooperation. They had followed every rule, every protocol, every tradition the council demanded. And this was their answer. Another council member stood. This one looked like a floating jellyfish made of pure light. Its voice buzzed through the translator. Everywhere humans went, conflict followed. They could not help themselves. They disrupted the careful order that had kept peace for thousands of years. Better to remove them now before they caused real damage. The session ended. No appeals would be heard, no second chances given. Daniel and Lisa walked out of the chamber in silence. Outside, their ship waited. The small diplomatic vessel looked tiny compared to the massive council station that orbited a purple gas giant. Back on Earth, President Helen Brooks sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the Capitol building. The walls were covered with screens showing data from every human colony in space. Her advisors surrounded the table, their faces grim. The news had just arrived through quantum communication. Exile, complete and total. General Nathan Pierce slammed his fist on the table hard enough to make coffee cups jump. He was a big man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. This was politics, he said loudly. The council feared humanity because humans refused to bow and scrape like trained pets. They built things too fast. They asked too many questions. They wanted to explore regions the council had marked as forbidden. Helen listened to her general rant, then held up her hand for silence. The decision was made. Fighting it would only make things worse. But humanity would not crawl back to Earth in shame. They would leave council space, yes. But they would leave on their terms. The evacuation order went out immediately. Quantum messages raced to every human colony scattered across 24 star systems. Return to Earth or be left behind. The council would not show mercy to anyone who remained, but not everyone wanted to return. On New Frontier Station, a mining colony orbiting a red dwarf star, Administrator Karen White read the message 3 times. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and hands scarred from years of manual labor. She had built this colony from nothing. She had watched it grow from a few temporary shelters to a thriving community of 10,000 people. She called a meeting in the main assembly hall. People crowded in, workers still wearing their mining suits, families with children, engineers and scientists and farmers. Karen stood on the stage and told them the truth. Earth wanted them to come home. The council wanted them gone. But there was a third option. Commander Jack Bennett stood beside her. He was younger, maybe 35, with the lean build of someone who spent more time in zero gravity than on planets. He led the Deep Space Exploration Fleet, a small group of ships that mapped unknown regions for future colonies. He had charts, he told the crowd. Maps of star systems the council had never explored. Dark zones beyond their borders where no patrol ships ever went. Why run back to Earth, Karen asked the crowd. Why huddle together in fear when the entire galaxy stretched out before them? They could go beyond. Go where the council could not reach. Build something new in the darkness, the crowd murmured. Some were afraid, some were excited. But when Karen called for a vote, 3/4 of the colony chose to go forward, not backward. Similar scenes played out across human space. Colony after colony chose exile over surrender. Engineers and scientists began working around the clock. If humanity was truly going alone into unknown space, they needed better ships, faster drives, stronger weapons, technology that could keep them alive for years without resupply. Peter Russo worked in the orbital shipyards above Earth. He was a stocky man with permanently oil-stained hands and a mind that understood machines better than people. He looked at the standard colony ships and shook his head. These would not be enough. They needed vessels that could travel for decades, ships that could mine asteroids for raw materials, mobile factories that could build anything they needed. Dr. Laura Kim joined the design team. She was the chief scientist of the exploration fleet, a woman with long black hair usually tied back in a practical bun. She brought news from the research divisions. The council had kept certain technologies suppressed for centuries. Faster engines, better power generation, advanced weapons. They claimed these were too dangerous, too destabilizing. But really, Laura said quietly, they just wanted to keep younger species under control. Now humanity had no such restrictions. They could build anything they could imagine. As the 72-hour deadline approached, something remarkable happened. Instead of a panicked retreat to Earth, a massive exodus began toward the galactic rim, toward unexplored space, toward freedom. Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, a colony transport carrying 5,000 people and enough supplies to start a new world. Beside him, pilot Greg Sullivan checked the navigation computers one last time. Greg was young and confident, fresh out of the academy with skills that made him one of the best pilots in the fleet. "Where are we actually going?" Greg asked. The star chart showed nothing but empty space in the direction they were heading. Daniel watched Council territory shrink on the rear-view screen. Somewhere out there in the darkness, he said, was a place the Council had never found, a place where humanity could become whatever they wanted to be, not what some ancient aliens thought they should be. The first wave of colony ships jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, Earth's defense fleet followed, warships loaded with weapons and supplies, support vessels carrying spare parts and raw materials, science ships packed with researchers eager to explore unknown regions. The Council had wanted to exile humanity. They thought they were removing a problem. But what they actually did was set humanity free. Free from rules that limited progress. Free from laws that prevented exploration. Free from a system designed to keep them weak and dependent. 300 ships left Council space that day. They carried 2 million people. They carried hope and determination and anger at being rejected. But most of all, they carried the unbreakable human spirit that refused to accept defeat. Karen White stood in the observation deck of her transport ship and watched the stars stream past. Her people surrounded her, looking through the windows at the unknown. Somebody asked if she was scared. She smiled. Scared? No. Excited. For the first time in her life, humanity was not following rules made by others. They were writing their own story, building their own future. The exile had begun. But for humanity, it was not an ending. It was liberation. Part 2. 3 months passed since the exodus began. The human fleets had scattered across the outer darkness like seeds thrown into a vast field. Each group of ships searched for their own patch of space to call home. The Horizon's Edge, now carrying the title of flagship for the Outer Rim Initiative, dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a star system that nobody had ever named. Karen White stood in the command center studying the sensor readings. 6 planets orbited a blue star that burned steady and bright. The second planet from the sun showed all the signs they were hoping for. Breathable atmosphere, liquid water, temperature ranges that humans could survive. She designated it Aurora Prime and called a meeting of all the colony leaders traveling with the fleet. The holoconference connected ships spread across the system. Faces appeared on screens. Some looked tired. Some looked excited. All of them looked determined. Karen spoke clearly. This is it. This is where we make our stand. This is where we build something the Council will never destroy. Construction began the moment the first shuttles touched ground. Unlike the careful, regulated developments under Council law, the human colonies grew wild and fast. Prefabricated structures rose from nothing in just days. Workers assembled buildings like children playing with blocks. Hydroponic farms sprawled across valleys, the green growth looking strange against the reddish soil. Mining teams drove deep into mountains following sensor readings to rich mineral deposits. Peter Russo could barely believe the scanner data. He stood in a mining tunnel, his helmet light reflecting off walls that sparkled with rare metals. The council had never explored this region because they assumed it was worthless. They were completely wrong. These minerals were exactly what humanity needed to build advanced ships and power systems. He radioed back to the orbital construction yards with the good news. Meanwhile, Commander Jack Bennett pushed his exploration fleet even deeper into uncharted space. His ship, the Pathfinder, was designed for long-range missions, powerful sensors, comfortable crew quarters, engines that could run for months without maintenance. They were mapping unknown star systems, looking for more colony sites, when they found something extraordinary. The asteroid field appeared on sensors first. Nothing unusual about that. Space was full of rocks. But these rocks were arranged in patterns, geometric shapes that could not be natural. Jack ordered the ship closer. Lieutenant Amy Foster worked the sensor station. She was young but sharp, with an instinct for finding details others missed. Her voice rose with excitement as she studied the readings. These structures were old, thousands of years old, maybe more, and the technology readings were off the charts. Dr. Laura Kim led the research team that entered the ruins. They wore environmental suits and carried scanning equipment. The structures were massive, built from materials that human science could barely identify. Inside, they found data cores still functioning after millennia, control panels with symbols that looked like mathematics mixed with art, and technology that made council science look primitive. Laura stood in what might have been a command center and felt chills run down her spine. The civilization that built this place, whoever they were, had been far more advanced than the council. She called them the precursors. Her team spent weeks extracting data, translating what they could, learning what the ancient builders had achieved. The precursors had not just traveled through space. They had reshaped it. Gravity manipulation that could move planets, quantum fold drives that bent distance itself, molecular reconstruction that could turn energy into matter. The data cores contained blueprints, formulas, theories that human scientists had never imagined. Back on Aurora Prime, Daniel Carter worked 18-hour days coordinating the growing network of human settlements. Dozens of colony sites had been established across multiple star systems. Each colony specialized in something. Some focused on agriculture, growing food for the others. Some built factories and manufacturing centers. Others became research stations or military bases. General Nathan Pierce arrived with the military fleet. His ships were loaded with weapons, ammunition, and trained soldiers. But he brought news that troubled Daniel. Scout ships had detected Council patrol vessels near the boundary zones. The Council was searching for human settlements. It seemed the exile was not just about removing humans from their territory. It was about making sure humans never came back. Karen understood immediately when she heard the report. The Council was afraid. They knew what humanity was capable of. They knew that given time and freedom, humans would advance beyond Council control. So they wanted to find the colonies and destroy them before they grew too strong. Lieutenant Greg Sullivan proposed a solution. Use the precursor technology to build a defense network, something that could detect Council ships long before the Council detected human colonies. Early warning systems that would give them time to prepare or hide. Peter Russo was already working on it. In the massive shipyards now floating in orbit around Aurora Prime, construction had begun on a new generation of ships. These vessels combined human engineering with precursor science. The first prototype, named the Liberty, looked different from any ship ever built. Sleek and angular, with hull plating made from materials found in the precursor ruins. Peter explained the specs to Admiral Frank Hayes, the man chosen to command the growing defense fleet. Frank was in his 60s, a veteran of Earth's old naval forces. He had gray hair and steady hands and the kind of calm that made people trust him. He listened as Peter described the Liberty's capabilities. The ship could outrun anything the Council had. Its weapons used precursor energy principles that could punch through standard shields. Its stealth systems made it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Frank nodded slowly. Good, because the Council would not let humanity remain hidden forever. They would come eventually, and humanity needed to be ready. On the research stations scattered across Aurora Prime's moons, breakthroughs came almost daily. Dr. Laura Kim's team unlocked quantum communication technology. Messages could now be sent instantly across any distance. No lightspeed delay, no lag. Colony leaders could coordinate in real time even when separated by dozens of light years. Engineer Kelly Price developed new terraforming systems. She was a short woman with red hair and a talent for environmental engineering. Her technology could take marginal worlds and make them habitable in months instead of decades. Atmospheric processors that worked 100 times faster than Council designs. Weather control systems that could regulate entire planets. But the most significant discovery came from cryptographer Nicole Reed. She was decoding precursor data files when she found something that changed everything. A warning written in ancient languages, translated through multiple civilizations, preserved for millions of years. Nicole called an emergency meeting of the Leadership Council. Daniel, Karen, Frank, Laura, and others gathered in the secure conference room deep underground. Nicole displayed the precursor message on the main screen. The Council was not the first galactic government, she explained. The precursors had watched others rise and fall over millions of years, and every single one fell for the same reason. They stopped evolving. They became obsessed with stability instead of progress. They built systems designed to prevent change. And when threats came from outside their understanding, they could not adapt fast enough to survive. The precursors themselves had fallen this way. An invasion from beyond the galaxy, something they could not comprehend, had destroyed their civilization because they had become too rigid in their thinking. Heavy silence filled the room. Daniel spoke first. So the Council is following the same path, and they see us as a threat because we will not stop advancing. Exactly, Nicole confirmed. She pulled up ancient star maps recovered from precursor data cores, which means they will eventually move against us. Not just to exile us, but to eliminate us completely. The revelation changed everything. If war was inevitable, humanity would prepare. Construction accelerated across all colony worlds. More star systems were surveyed and settled. The defense fleet grew from dozens of ships to hundreds. Scientists worked day and night pushing the boundaries of physics. 5 months after exile, humanity had established 47 colony systems. They built 600 warships incorporating precursor technology. They developed scientific advances that would have been impossible under Council restrictions. They called their new nation the Terran Expanse. And in the darkness beyond Council space, something was growing, something the Council had never expected. An empire built on freedom and innovation. An empire that refused to accept limits. Karen White stood on a balcony overlooking the main city on Aurora Prime. Below her, streets bustled with activity. People from different colonies mixed together. Scientists traded theories with engineers. Soldiers trained alongside farmers. Children played in parks under alien stars. She thought about the Council, about their rigid rules and fear of change, about their comfortable stagnation. Then she looked at what humanity had built in just 5 months. Progress, growth, evolution. Let them come, she thought. Let them see what they created by trying to suppress us. Let them learn that exiling humanity was the worst mistake they ever made. Part 3. 2 years had passed since the exile began. The Terran Expanse was growing strong when something unexpected happened. A massive vessel dropped out of hyperspace near the Aurora Prime system. The ship was damaged badly. Hull breaches scarred its surface. One engine was completely dark. Its design was unlike anything humans had seen before. Organic curves mixed with crystalline structures that bent light in strange ways. Admiral Frank Hayes ordered the defense fleet to intercept positions. Weapons powered up, shields activated, but he held the fire command. He wanted to understand what they were dealing with first. The alien ship sent a transmission. It took the computers 3 hours to translate the language. When they finally decoded the message, it was simple and desperate. Sanctuary, please. Captain Lisa Morgan volunteered to lead the first contact team. She was brave and level-headed, the kind of officer soldiers trusted to make hard decisions. She took a squad of Marines and boarded the damaged vessel. They moved through corridors that glowed with soft bioluminescent light. The ship felt alive somehow, breathing. They found survivors in what looked like a medical bay. The aliens were tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that glowed and shifted colors. They had 4 arms that ended in delicate fingers. When they saw the humans, their skin flashed yellow. The translator identified it as relief. Their leader introduced himself as Keeper Ven. His people were called the Luminari. They had fled from council space just like humanity. They had been running for a very long time. In the council chamber on Aurora Prime, Keeper Ven told their story. The Luminari had been a founding member of the Galactic Council 3,000 years ago. They were scientists and explorers. They had discovered a way to harness dark energy for faster-than-light travel. This breakthrough would have revolutionized space travel. Ships could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months, but the Council refused to allow it. Keeper Ven's skin shifted to blue, which the translator said meant sorrow. The Council claimed the technology was too dangerous, too destabilizing. It would upset the careful balance they had maintained for millennia. When the Luminari tried to implement the technology anyway, the Council branded them as rebels. Warships came. Worlds burned. The Luminari had been fleeing ever since. Daniel Carter leaned forward in his chair. "How many of you survived?" he asked quietly. "Fewer than 10,000 now," Ven replied. His skin flickered with dark purple, which meant shame. "We have hidden in the void for generations, always moving, always fleeing, until we detected your quantum communications. Technology that should be impossible according to Council science. We had to know who else had broken free. Dr. Laura Kim was already thinking about the possibilities. You said dark energy manipulation. Could you share that technology with us?" Keeper Ven's skin shifted to amber, which meant curiosity or surprise. "You would not hoard it for your leadership alone? You would share it freely?" Laura smiled. "Knowledge belongs to everyone. That is what separates us from the Council." The integration of the Luminari changed everything. Their dark energy technology combined with human innovation and precursor knowledge produced incredible results. The new engines, called void engines, bent space itself. Ships using them could cross the galaxy in weeks. Distance became almost meaningless. Peter Russo oversaw the retrofit of the entire human fleet. He worked alongside Luminari engineers, learning their methods, teaching them human techniques. The collaboration produced ships that were not just faster than Council vessels. They operated on completely different principles of physics. But the Luminari brought more than just technology. They brought intelligence. Information gathered over centuries of hiding. Keeper Ven shared what the Luminari had learned about the Galactic Council. The truth was darker than humans had imagined. The Council was not a democracy. It was not even a republic. It was an oligarchy controlled by the first species, ancient races that had discovered faster-than-light travel first. They used that advantage to subjugate every younger civilization that came after. They allowed technological advancement, but only to a certain point. Enough to be useful, never enough to be threatening. They call it the stability doctrine, Ven explained. We call it oppression. They keep every species weak enough to control, strong enough to contribute, but never strong enough to challenge them. Nicole Reed cross-referenced this information with the precursor data. She worked for days without sleep, driven by a need to understand. When she finally called the Leadership Council together, her face was grim. "It all matches," she said. The precursors documented the same pattern. Multiple galactic civilizations throughout history, all following the same path. Rapid expansion, achievement of Council-level technology, then stagnation for millions of years, until they are conquered by something they are no longer advanced enough to fight. The implications hit everyone hard. The Galactic Council was not protecting civilization. They were crippling it, deliberately keeping everyone weak, preventing the kind of advancement that might let species defend themselves against real threats. Commander Jack Bennett returned from another deep space expedition with more news. His exploration fleet had encountered other exile groups. The Korathi, a warrior race banished for refusing to disarm. The Valian monks expelled for developing mental powers the Council deemed dangerous. The merchant clans of Sirius exiled for trading in forbidden technologies. They are all out here, Jack reported. Dozens of species, maybe hundreds, all cast out for the same reason. They wanted to advance beyond what the Council allowed. An idea formed in Daniel Carter's mind. What if humanity brought them all together? What if the exiles united? He called it the Frontier Alliance. A coalition of exile races, united not by force or law but by shared purpose. Freedom to evolve, freedom to explore, freedom to become something greater than what the Council allowed. The first Alliance summit was held on Aurora Prime. Representatives from 12 different species gathered. It was chaos at first. Different biology meant different environmental needs. The Karathi needed high gravity and low oxygen. The Valian monks required dim light and silence. The merchant clans brought trade goods nobody had asked for, but slowly they found common ground. Each species brought unique technologies. The Karathi contributed advanced weapons and combat strategies. Their warriors had fought the Council for 2 centuries before accepting exile. The Valian monks taught mental disciplines that enhanced human cognition, meditation techniques that improved focus and problem-solving. The merchant clans provided economic networks and secret trade routes through regions Council ships never patrolled. Daniel stood before the gathered representatives and spoke simply. Together we are no longer exiles. We are pioneers. This is our frontier. The Alliance grew faster than anyone expected. Shared technologies accelerated development across all member species. Human shipyards produced vessels for Karathi warriors. Luminary engineers helped Valians construct meditation centers that amplified their mental abilities. The merchant clans established trade hubs connecting distant Alliance worlds. In just 2 years, the Frontier Alliance had grown to encompass 200 star systems, 23 different species. The Terran Expanse alone commanded a fleet of 3,000 ships. Each vessel incorporated the best technologies of multiple civilizations. But success brought danger. Council long-range scouts began detecting unusual energy signatures on the edge of known space. Patrol vessels reported mysterious ship contacts that vanished before they could be intercepted. Strange readings that did not match any known technology. High Arbiter Zephyron convened an emergency session of the remaining council. His 3 eyes studied the reports with growing concern. The exiles were organizing. They were sharing technology. They were becoming something the council could not control. A Krell commander spoke. We must eliminate them before they become a genuine threat. Send the military fleets. Burn their colonies. Destroy their ships. Show them what happens to those who defy council authority. Zephyron hesitated. The last time they had confronted humans directly, it had not gone well. The Battle of Meridian had proven that exile ships were more advanced than intelligence suggested. But letting the exiles continue was not an option either. The council prepared for war. Warships were called back from patrol duties. Military production increased. Battle plans were drawn. They would strike hard and fast. Overwhelm the exiles before they could coordinate a defense. In Alliance space, intelligence networks detected the military buildup. The merchant clans had spies throughout Council territory. They reported increased warship construction, troop movements, supply stockpiling, all the signs of coming war. Admiral Frank Hayes convened a meeting of Alliance military commanders. Representatives from every member species gathered via quantum link. The mood was serious. Karen White spoke plainly. They will come for us. We knew this day would arrive. The question is whether we are ready. The Karathi war leader, a massive creature named Korval, bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. We have been ready since the day we were exiled. Let them come. Let them learn what free people fight like. But Daniel urged caution. We do not want war. We want survival. We want freedom. Fighting should be our last option, not our first. Part 4. The first battle came without any warning. A council strike force dropped into the Meridian system at dawn. 50 warships appeared from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their weapons were powered up. Their shields were active. They had come to deliver a message written in fire. Meridian was a mining colony on the edge of Alliance space. 5,000 people lived there, digging rare minerals from asteroid fields. They had defense platforms and early warning systems, but nobody expected an attack this soon. Admiral Frank Hayes and the 3rd Fleet were conducting training exercises 2 light hours away when the alert came through. Frank did not hesitate. His fleet jumped to Meridian immediately. The council commander was a Krell named Vortex. He transmitted on all frequencies, his voice grinding like stone on metal. By order of the Galactic Council, this system must be evacuated and dismantled. Resist and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to comply. Frank's response was calm and measured. This system is under the protection of the Frontier Alliance. You are ordered to withdraw immediately. Vortex laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. The Council does not negotiate with exiles. You will surrender or you will die. The Council ships opened fire. Plasma cannons unleashed streams of superheated energy. Missiles streaked through space trailing white exhaust. It was an overwhelming barrage designed to shatter any defense. But when the weapon struck Alliance shields, something unexpected happened. The plasma dispersed harmlessly. The missiles detonated without effect. The new shield technology, built from precursor designs and enhanced with luminary dark energy, was generations beyond Council science. "Return fire," Frank ordered. "Disable their engines. Avoid casualties if possible." The Liberty and her sister ships responded with precision. Railguns launched projectiles at incredible speeds. Magnetic accelerators hurled chunks of metal at relativistic velocities. The projectiles punched through Council shields like paper. Within minutes, 25 Council ships were crippled, drifting powerless through space. Vortex stared at his displays in shock and disbelief. This was impossible. Council intelligence said the Exiles had only primitive vessels. Outdated technology. Nothing that could threaten a proper military force. "Your intelligence was wrong," Frank replied. "Now withdraw while you still can." The surviving Council ships fled. They jumped to hyperspace in panic, abandoning their crippled comrades. The Battle of Meridian lasted exactly 11 minutes. The message was sent across the galaxy. The Exiles were no longer weak. They were no longer prey. In the Council chambers, panic erupted. Representatives shouted over each other. How did they advance so quickly? Where did they get such technology? The humans had been exiled for barely 2 years. This level of advancement should be impossible. High Arbiter Zephyron studied the battle reports with growing dread. The technology displayed by Alliance vessels should not exist. Shields that could deflect Council weapons. Faster-than-light drives operating on unknown principles. Weapons that bypassed standard defenses. They must have found something, he concluded. Ancient technology, perhaps. Or they have made contact with other exile groups. Either way, they must be stopped. But stopping the Alliance proved harder than expected. Council patrol vessels began disappearing along the border. Scout ships reported detecting Alliance presence, then vanished when reinforcements arrived. The Exiles were using tactics the regimented Council military had never encountered. Commander Jack Bennett specialized in these operations. His ships would appear from dark energy slip space, gather intelligence, and vanish before Council forces could respond. His crews mapped patrol routes, identified supply lines, documented everything they saw. The information flowed back to Alliance Command through quantum communication networks. "They are blind out here," Jack reported to Karen White. "They have relied on their sensor network for so long. They do not know how to operate without it." Karen smiled. "Then we make them even more blind." Lieutenant Amy Foster led a covert operation deep into Council space. Her team used ships equipped with holographic projectors, another application of precursor technology. They could look like Council vessels, merchant ships, even asteroids. They infiltrated a Council communications hub without being detected. The mission was not to destroy. It was something more clever. Nicole Reed had created a virus, a piece of code so subtle that Council technicians would never notice it. The virus fed false data into Council sensors, made them see Alliance ships where none existed, made them miss real vessels moving right under their nose. Within weeks, Council forces were chasing phantom contacts. Alliance convoys moved freely while Council ships pursued ghosts. Paranoia spread through Council ranks. Commanders second-guessed their own sensors. Response times slowed as they verified and re-verified every reading. Meanwhile, the Alliance continued to grow. New species joined almost every week. Stories of freedom and unlimited technological advancement spread through exile communities. The Siler arrived, silicon-based life forms that understood energy better than anyone. The Drifters came, nomadic traders who knew secret routes through dangerous regions. Dr. Laura Kim's research teams made another breakthrough. Working with Valian specialists, they developed consciousness-based communication, thoughts transmitted instantly across any distance. No electronic signals to intercept, no jamming possible. The Council's electronic warfare became useless against it. "We are not just matching them technologically," Laura reported to the Leadership Council. "We are leapfrogging them entirely." But the Council was not helpless. High Arbiter Zephyron authorized deployment of their most powerful weapons, the enforcement fleets. These were not ordinary warships. They were dreadnoughts, each one the size of a small moon, armed with planet-breaking weapons. Crewed by the most fanatical Council loyalists, 6 enforcement fleets were activated. Their destination, Alliance space. Their mission, complete extermination of the exile civilizations. Intelligence reached Admiral Frank Hayes through a merchant clan contact. The trader arrived at Aurora Prime with his ship's engines pushed beyond safe limits. He brought a warning. The Council was not coming to fight skirmishes anymore. They were coming to exterminate emergency councils convened across Alliance space. The mood was grim. Frank spoke honestly. We cannot stand against those ships in direct combat. A single dreadnought has more firepower than our entire fleet combined. Then we do not fight them directly, Captain Lisa Morgan suggested. We use what we are good at, adaptation and innovation. Peter Russo proposed a desperate plan. The precursor ruins mentioned something called a gravitational collapse weapon. It created a localized singularity, a temporary black hole. If we can build it, we could eliminate a dreadnought with a single shot. How temporary? Daniel Carter asked carefully. Peter hesitated. According to the data, very temporary. Maybe seconds. But that is enough to swallow a ship completely. How long to build it? Karen pressed. Peter calculated quickly. If we dedicate every resource we have, 3 months, maybe 4. The enforcement fleets will reach our borders in 6 weeks, Frank said quietly. Then we buy time. Greg Sullivan volunteered. We use every trick we have learned. Ambushes, feints, guerrilla tactics. We make them bleed for every light year they advance. The campaign that followed was remembered as the Shadow War. Alliance forces struck from darkness. They targeted supply lines, isolated smaller vessels, avoided direct engagement with the dreadnoughts. The Council found themselves fighting an enemy they could not pin down, an enemy that hit and vanished like smoke. Council ships began to fear the darkness between stars. Every shadow might hide an enemy. Every asteroid field could be an ambush. The mighty enforcement fleets pushed forward, but they bled ships and supplies with every jump. Meanwhile, in secret shipyards hidden in nebula clouds and asteroid fields, construction proceeded on the weapon that might save them all. Peter Russo worked without sleep. Engineers from a dozen species contributed. The device grew larger, more complex, more dangerous. They built it into the hull of the largest ship ever constructed by human hands, a vessel so enormous it had to be assembled in deep space. They named it the Defiance. Time was running out. The enforcement fleets pushed deeper into Alliance territory. They crushed resistance wherever they found it. Entire colony worlds were evacuated ahead of their advance. Refugees fled deeper into Alliance space, but the Alliance refused to surrender. Every species, every colony, every being that had found freedom in the frontier prepared to defend what they had built. Admiral Frank Hayes coordinated the defense. He placed his fleets carefully, not to stop the dreadnoughts but to slow them, guide them, funnel them toward a specific point in space. Captain Lisa Morgan sat in the command chair of the Defiance. She had volunteered to captain the massive vessel. Everyone knew it might be a one-way mission. The gravitational collapse weapon was untested. It might work perfectly. It might destroy the Defiance along with its target. Lisa looked at the screens showing the approaching enforcement fleets. 6 dreadnoughts, hundreds of support vessels, thousands of warriors, all coming to destroy everything the Alliance had built. She opened a channel to Peter Russo in engineering. Is the weapon ready? Peter's voice came back steady despite the circumstances. As ready as it will ever be. The math is sound, whether we can generate enough power. Part 5. The weapon was ready 3 days before the enforcement fleets reached Aurora Prime. Peter Russo stood before the massive device, feeling tiny beside its scale. The gravitational collapser was built into the heart of the Defiance. A ship so large it had its own gravity, so powerful it needed 6 reactors just to maintain basic systems. Are you certain this will work? Admiral Frank Hayes asked. He stood on the bridge with Captain Lisa Morgan, studying the weapon systems on display screens. The math is sound, Peter replied through the communication link. Whether we can generate enough power to sustain the collapse field is the real question. Only one way to find out, Lisa said calmly. She had accepted this might be a one-way mission, but if it saved the Alliance, the sacrifice would be worth it. The 6 Council enforcement fleets arrived in Aurora Prime system simultaneously. It was a show of overwhelming force designed to crush any resistance. 300 warships, 6 dreadnoughts, 50,000 Council troops ready for orbital bombardment. The largest military operation in Council history. High Arbiter Zephron commanded personally from the lead dreadnought, Eternal Order. He transmitted his ultimatum across all frequencies. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Surrender immediately. Dismantle your illegal technologies. Submit to Council rule. This is your final opportunity. From Aurora Prime, Daniel Carter stood in the command center surrounded by representatives from every Alliance species. He took a breath and responded clearly. We built something out here in the darkness. Something beautiful. Something free. We will never surrender it. Then you will die for it, Zephron declared. The Council fleet advanced in perfect formation, dreadnoughts in the center, support vessels forming protective screens, weapons charging. It looked unstoppable. The Alliance Defense Force moved to intercept. Every ship, every warrior, every being who had found freedom in the frontier, prepared to defend what they had built. They were outnumbered 5-1, outgunned worse than that, but they would not run. The battle began with a massive exchange of weapons fire. Space lit up with plasma and missiles and energy beams. Alliance shields flickered under the barrage but held. Return fire disabled dozens of Council vessels, but the dreadnoughts pressed forward. Their massive cannons were preparing to fire. All ships execute Pattern Omega, Frank broadcast through quantum communication. The Alliance fleet scattered. Formations broke into what looked like chaos. Council commanders thought it was panic. It was actually precision. Each Alliance vessel had a specific target, a specific mission. They swarmed around the dreadnoughts like insects around giants, too small and fast for massive weapons to track. They targeted sensors, communication arrays, engine components. Not trying to destroy the dreadnoughts, but to blind and isolate them. What are they doing? Vortex shouted from his vessel. Why are we not hitting them? They are too agile, his tactical officer reported, and our targeting systems are being disrupted. Some kind of electromagnetic interference. The interference was Nicole Reed's electronic warfare package. Every Alliance ship transmitted it simultaneously. Council systems glitched. Sensors reported false readings. Weapons fired at phantom targets. Their careful formations became confused, but it was not enough. The dreadnoughts were simply too powerful. Even blind, their random fire was devastating. Alliance ships began to fall. Explosions bloomed in the darkness like deadly flowers. On Aurora Prime's surface, civilians watched through telescopes and holographic displays. Children held their parents' hands. Karen White stood with other colony leaders. Her face was grim but determined. Whatever happens up there, she said quietly, we do not stop. Even if we have to rebuild from nothing, we keep going. In space, the moment of truth arrived. Defiance is in position, Lisa Morgan reported. Gravitational collapser is charging. The massive weapon drew power from every reactor on the ship. Energy readings climbed to dangerous levels. Luminary engineers monitored dark energy flow. Human technicians watched structural integrity readings that showed the ship straining under the load. Target locked on lead dreadnought, the weapons officer confirmed. Eternal Order. Lisa looked at her crew. They had trained for this, prepared for this, but nobody really knew if it would work. She gave the order. Fire. Reality bent. A point of absolute darkness appeared directly in front of the Eternal Order, a sphere of nothingness that consumed light itself. For 3 seconds, a miniature black hole existed in normal space. The gravitational pull was irresistible, overwhelming, absolute. The massive dreadnought was pulled forward, millions of tons of metal and power drawn into the singularity like water down a drain. The ship compressed, twisted, elongated. High Arbiter Zephron and 3,000 Council crew vanished into the darkness. Then the collapse field destabilized. The artificial black hole imploded. A flash of radiation marked where it had been, and the Eternal Order was simply gone, erased from existence. The entire battle stopped. Both sides stared in horror and awe at empty space where a dreadnought had been seconds before. That is impossible, Vortex whispered. Nothing can create a stable singularity. The energy requirements alone should be impossible. We just did, Frank Hayes replied on an open channel. And we have enough charge for 4 more shots. Withdraw now or join your High Arbiter. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the Council fleet began to retreat. Warships turned away. Support vessels jumped to hyperspace. The remaining 5 dreadnoughts withdrew in formation, their crews terrified of what they had witnessed. The Battle of Aurora Prime lasted 6 hours. When it ended, The Alliance had lost 93 ships and 12,000 souls, but they had won. More importantly, they had proven something the Council never expected. The exiles were not just survivors. They were a power that could defeat the Council's best. News of the victory spread across known space faster than light itself. The quantum communication network connecting Alliance worlds also transmitted deliberately into Council space. Within days, every species in Council territory knew the truth. The exiles had defeated the enforcement fleets. The political impact was immediate and catastrophic for the Council. Dozens of member species began demanding the technologies that had been suppressed. Some threatened to leave the Council entirely. The carefully maintained order began to crack. High Counselor Rathleen led the Valorian delegation. She contacted Daniel Carter secretly through encrypted channels. "Your victory has changed everything," she said. "Many of us have questioned the stability doctrine for years. We were simply too afraid to speak against it." "Then speak now," Daniel encouraged. "The universe is changing. Change with it or be left behind." Over the following months, a remarkable transformation occurred. The Galactic Council split. Nearly half its member species either departed entirely or demanded radical reforms. Some joined the Frontier Alliance. Others formed their own confederations. The age of Council dominance was ending. In Alliance space, growth exploded. Technologies were shared freely across hundreds of worlds. The gravitational collapser was modified into terraforming equipment. It could move asteroids and adjust planetary orbits. Dark energy engines became standard on all vessels. The galaxy shrank to manageable size. 1 year after the Battle of Aurora Prime, the Alliance controlled 500 star systems. 2 years after, over 1,000. Species once considered primitive by Council standards now collaborated with races millions of years older. A golden age of innovation had begun. Dr. Laura Kim stood before the Galactic Science Assembly, a new institution where researchers from across the Alliance gathered to share discoveries. "We have advanced farther in 3 years than the Council did in 3,000, she announced. "Because we are not afraid of change. We embrace it." The Terran expanse itself had become extraordinary. Earth was no longer a single world, but the heart of a federation spanning 200 systems. Humans had learned from every species they encountered, adapted and evolved in ways that surprised even themselves. Captain Lisa Morgan, promoted to Fleet Admiral, oversaw construction of a new generation of vessels. These ships incorporated the best of every Alliance species: human ingenuity, luminary energy manipulation, Korathi resilience, Valian consciousness integration, precursor design principles. "We are not just building a fleet," she told Peter Russo. "We are building a civilization that can survive anything." The remaining Council, diminished but not destroyed, maintained control over their core territories, but they no longer claimed absolute authority over the galaxy. A new balance had emerged. The old order in the inner sectors, the new frontier beyond. High Counselor Rathleen established diplomatic relations with the Alliance. The first message she sent was simple: "We were wrong to exile you. Perhaps we needed your example to remember what we once were." Daniel Carter replied with grace, "The galaxy is large enough for multiple paths. We do not seek to replace you, only to exist alongside you." But privately, with his inner circle, Daniel was honest. "They will never truly accept us, but they will never threaten us again either. We have become too strong, too advanced, too interconnected with too many species." Karen White smiled. "So we did it. We turned exile into victory. More than that," Commander Jack Bennett said. He looked at star maps showing Alliance territory spreading across 3 spiral arms. "We turned